hey, we're thinking in hundreds of dimensions. We're communicating by thought. We've got all sorts of other sensory input. Life for us, we're on a completely different plane. They would have been of no consequence. They will be still operating in 3 dimensions. So I think we are moving through the singularity and into a whole new intellectual plane. And those that move through it will have intellectual powers that they're just out. The Terrans will be the cows of the future, if you see what I mean.
I
Intellectual.
do, and I've heard you make that analogy before, and I actually shared it with one of my previous interviewees from Australia. His name is James Harvey, and he wrote a book called Singularity, Being at the Edge of Time. And his response was he shared a very particular experience with me about a very beautiful moon night and overhearing the cows from the farm next door to him mooing against the moonlight or something like that. And his response to that was that he would highly recommend to anyone and everyone to listen every once in a while to the sound or the mooing of the cows, and how incredibly enriching that could be as an experience at an experiential level rather than a logical or rational level. So
Yeah, I,
he thought that you undervalue the mooing of the cows greatly.
no, no, not at all. I mean, I think there's a lot of value to listening to cows, watching sheep, listening to bird song. I'm not saying, but it's what is the power of that cow mooing or the sheep, and how do we respond to it? And I'm sure when the cow made the noises that it did, or the cows made the noises, he did not instantly go and do what the cows might have been suggesting, because it meant nothing. It was just noises to him. They might have been beautiful noises in the night, but he didn't instantly go and do things in response to what the cows were saying to him. He got on with his life and thought that was a nice noise, and then came on and did a program with you. And I think that's the point. If the Terrans are making silly noises, which to them is saying, stop what you're doing, we don't want you to do that, they will just be silly noises to us. That's it, simple. So we're not going to listen to that. Intellectually, what do they know? Just like now, intellectually, what do cows know? They're not going to put the world to right. The cows are not going to solve the Arab-Israeli conflict. uh, we have our own itinerary that is
Mhm,
way beyond, way above those. So
mhm.
I wouldn't disagree that it's nice to listen to cows from time to time. And in the future, cyborgs will enjoy, of a quiet evening, listening to humans making the silly noises that they do.
Very interesting. So let me zoom back also a little bit more and ask you about a bigger prediction, a very hard question. Generally, people within the field of computer science or artificial intelligence tend to agree that eventually we may reach the point where AI exists and is recognized widely so, but they largely disagree, I believe, on the timeline, how
Yes.
far off we are from that moment. So some people say, well, it's going to be at least 100 years. We're very far off. It's baby steps we're doing right now. Other people like Ray Kurzweil say, well, by 2045 or 2030 or something like that. I think his prediction is about 2040 that the technological singularity is likely to occur. So
Yeah.
what, in your opinion, is your estimate? Do you accept Ray Kurzweil's timeline or?
I mean, I agree. It is not a point of whether it will or not. I think the only people that say it will not are probably religious believers that the God is there and not going to let this happen. But anybody that looks at things from a sensible technological perspective says, yes, it's going to happen. To be honest, I think my guess, and it is just a guess because
Hmm.
you don't know how quickly the military are going to push things forward and so on,
Yeah.
is Ray is not too bad. You know, I might say it's 2041, but not 2040 or whatever. But it's in that sort of time scale. Maybe, as you say, as early as 2030 could easily be. I wrote, while we're plugging books, I wrote a book a few years ago called March of the Machines.
Yeah.
Before the Terminator Rise of the Machines came about, they obviously was pinching the title from me. But March of the Machines looked at, and this was about 1997,
Yeah.
looked at a future 50 years ahead where we are just gone through the singularity, if you like. So the 2040, 2045 scenario is about where we're at. So I think that's about the, you have to say, um, given the speed of technology, and Ray talks about the exponential increase.
Yeah.
Yeah, whether it's exponential exactly, but the point is it's faster than a straightforward one for one linear. It's speeding up, sure.
Hmm.
Um, and I agree with that, and it has to be something. I think I, Robot, it was perhaps in the film, which I thought was excellent in places. It was looking at 2030 as having these robots, and that's when the danger comes about. Similar sort of danger,
Yeah.
amazingly. So maybe 2030, people have got to look over their shoulders. By 2045, cyborgs will have to look over their shoulders.
Well, bringing in the religious side to things, yesterday Stephen Hawking made news that in his latest book, he claimed that God was not needed for the beginning of the universe. So I want to ask you, first of all, do you have any religious affiliations yourself, past or present? And do you think that your work would potentially have religious um, effect or impact on the religion or the major religions of the world, if provided we're successful in creating artificial intelligence?
Yeah, I have to say, I was brought up, my parents took me to church every week, Church of England, so Protestant type of thing. So it's not as though I'm sitting from the point of view I don't know anything about it. I have to say I'm not an expert on religions of the world. And it is interesting giving presentations. I guess every week I'm doing 3 or 4 presentations somewhere at a school or at a conference.
Hmm.
And it's amazing the number of religious people, and I do mean priests and bishops. I had the Bishop of Coventry at a presentation in Cambridge a week or two ago, very supportive of the work that I'm doing. Somebody was critical of what I'm up to, and he was no. This is he was certainly not. We should retain humanity as it is, but saying, well, if we can improve things, then let's improve things. So I think there are some religions that are happy to go with it. You know, they don't see things as being limited. The Terran type of thing is not necessarily a religious thing. If we can improve the lot, if we can improve healthcare, but we can also give people intellectual upgrades, then let's do it, which has surprised me. So I don't know that I completely agree with Stephen Hawking. It is interesting that he's spent most of his life um, making a living out of the fact that this big bang occurred, and and now he turns back on it a little bit. I guess that's the nature of theoretical physicists and so on. But we don't, to be honest, we don't know what happened millions, billions of years ago.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't know for sure that there is definitely not a god or lots of gods. Scientifically, it's unlikely, but scientifically, to be honest, I think the Big Bang is just as unlikely. I mean, it's also a bit of a crazy idea. So, I mean, we don't really have a clue. Maybe AI researchers ought to come up with a new theory of what happened at the start of the universe. But at the moment, no, I don't think any of the theories are particularly good. So religion is one I don't go for particularly. I don't really like the way religion is hypocritical in many ways. I think that the Catholic Church particularly is very, very wealthy, and then there are a lot of poor people that give money to the church, and I find that difficult to live with, really, in that context. To support it anyway. So I've waffled around the fact I'm not really a religious person. If people want to be, that's fine. That's up to them. I don't know that I see it playing a distinct part in the future after the singularity. I can't really see that.
Mm-hmm.